My son looked me in the eye, his wife smirking at his side, and said, "You're not my real father anymore." Those words shattered me more than any illness or loss I had ever faced. But when the lawyer opened the will, the truth was revealed, one sentence that made everyone in the room turn pale. Before I tell you what happened, make sure to subscribe, share this story, and tell me in the comments if you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved with your whole heart. I still remember the first time I held Michael in my arms. His mother had been in labor for 20 hours, exhausted and pale. But when they placed that tiny boy in my hands, her smile lit up the room. "He's your son," she whispered. And in that moment, I swore my entire life would be devoted to protecting him. His mother, my wife, Rachel, passed away when Michael was only 6. Cancer took her before she could even see him lose his first tooth. I remember her last words to me in that cold, sterile hospital room. "Promise me, James, you'll raise him to be kind. Promise me he'll never feel alone." And I kept that promise. I worked 12-hour shifts at the factory, sometimes 2 jobs, to make sure Michael had everything he needed. I packed lunches with little notes inside, showed up at every soccer game no matter how tired I was, and drove through the night just to take him to a college campus tour he wanted to see. He was my pride, my joy, the reason I woke up every morning. For years, it was just us two, father and son. We were a team. But then, she entered the picture. Her name was Isabella. On the surface, she was charming, elegant, the kind of woman who knew how to make everyone in the room look at her. But behind her flawless smile, I saw something sharp, calculating eyes that never softened, even when she laughed. Michael met her at a business networking event, after landing his first serious job. I was proud of him that day. My boy had become a man, walking into the world I had broken my back to give him. When he introduced Isabella to me, she shook my hand, her grip firm but her eyes scanning me like I was nothing more than a cheap piece of furniture in her new life. She came from money, old money. Her parents owned property across the state. To her, my son was a project, someone she could polish into the kind of trophy husband her family would accept. And I was a blemish on the image she wanted. At first it was subtle. She would mock the way I dressed, telling Michael I looked like a handyman instead of a father. She suggested he stop bringing me to family dinners because, in her words, Dad doesn't exactly fit in with this crowd. I bit my tongue. For Michael's happiness, I endured. I told myself she would grow to accept me, that maybe time would soften her cruelty. But instead, it only grew worse. The day that broke me was his 33rd birthday. We were sitting at his long dining table, one I had helped him buy when he and Isabella moved into their new house. The house I had co-signed for because the bank refused their initial loan. I was eating in silence when Isabella leaned close to him, whispering just loud enough for me to hear, "You're still letting him hang around." "It's embarrassing, Michael." And then, like he had rehearsed it, Michael turned to me with a smile that cut like glass. "Dad, actually, you're not really my father anymore. I mean, you raised me, yes. But Isabella's right. Her family has become my family now. That's where my loyalty is." The fork slipped from my fingers. My chest felt hollow. I searched his eyes for some sign of regret, some flicker of the boy who once cried when I left for late-night shifts. But there was nothing, only coldness. He didn't know. He didn't know about the will. A year before Rachel passed, her father, Michael's grandfather, had quietly placed millions of dollars into a trust. He told me, "James, this isn't just money, it's a shield. Use it when the time is right. And remember, character matters more than blood." That trust had grown into an empire, real estate, stocks, and land worth over $30 million. And though my name was on every document, the instructions were clear. It was for the person who proved themselves worthy of carrying the family's legacy. Michael thought his wife's family made him untouchable. He thought casting me aside was nothing more than trimming dead weight from his polished new life. He didn't know that every cruel word, every betrayal, was being weighed against him. 2 weeks later, the lawyer called. The will was to be read. Isabella strutted into that office in her designer dress, her lips already curled in victory. Michael sat beside her, smug, certain that the fortune was his by default. And me, I sat quietly in the corner, holding Rachel's old wedding ring in my pocket, praying she could see what was about to unfold. The lawyer cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses, and began. To my beloved family, the inheritance will go to the one who remained loyal, who carried love and sacrifice in their heart, the one who never forgot where they came from. Michael smirked, already leaning back in his chair, ready to accept his crown. But then the lawyer read the next line. A name, and it wasn't his. The lawyer's voice was steady, deliberate, each syllable echoing in the quiet office. The full inheritance shall go to James Whitaker. My name. For a moment, silence. I could hear only the faint ticking of the clock on the wall, the way the second hand dragged across the minutes. Michael's smirk froze on his face, then slowly melted into disbelief. Isabel's manicured nails dug into his arm like claws. Well, what? Michael's voice cracked, half a laugh, half a plea. That can't be right. He's just my dad. He wasn't even related to Grandpa by blood. The lawyer adjusted his glasses again, unfazed. Mr. Whitaker was the sole executor of this trust, as well as the one deemed most worthy by the benefactor. Your grandfather specified loyalty, sacrifice, and integrity as conditions for inheritance. Mr. Whitaker alone fulfilled those terms. I sat quietly, saying nothing, though inside me, emotions clashed like storms. Vindication, sadness, a deep ache that even $30 million couldn't soothe. Michael's face twisted. No, this is a mistake. The money should be mine. I'm his blood. The lawyer's eyes sharpened. Sir, being related by blood does not erase betrayal. The documents are ironclad. Isabella, red with fury, leaned forward, her voice dripping venom. So what now? He gets to play king while we're left with nothing? After everything we've built? The lawyer turned a page. Actually, Mrs. Whitaker, there is more. The will contains a personal note. The lawyer unfolded a smaller envelope, his voice softening as he read aloud. Michael, if you're hearing this, know that I loved you as my grandson. But love is not entitlement. I watched the man who raised you sacrifice every breath for your happiness. If you choose arrogance and betrayal over loyalty, then you forfeit your right to this legacy. Wealth without character is poison. My fortune belongs to the one who proved themselves with deeds, not words. And that is James, your father in every way that truly matters. Michael's eyes brimmed with tears, but not of regret, of rage. He slammed his fist on the table. This is insane. Dad, tell him. Tell him you'll share it with me. I looked at my son, my boy who once clung to my hand at carnivals, who cried when nightmares woke him, who whispered, I love you, Dad, before bed. I searched for that boy, but all I saw was a man hardened by greed and poisoned by pride. Michael, I said quietly, I gave you everything I had, my youth, my energy, my love, and when I had nothing left, I gave more. But love isn't a bank account you get to empty without giving back. You said I wasn't your real father anymore. Remember? His face drained of color. The room was thick with tension, Isabella glaring like a cornered animal. You don't mean that, he stammered. You're saying this because you're hurt. But we're family. I shook my head. Family isn't a word you toss around when it's convenient. Family is loyalty when times are hard. Family is sacrifice. And you chose her. I gestured to Isabella and her family's approval over me. That was your choice. The lawyer cleared his throat again. Mr. Whitaker, there's also a provision. You may choose to appoint a successor or trustee for portions of the inheritance. That decision rests entirely with you. Michael's eyes lit up, desperation flaring. See, you can fix this. Just say my name. Just give me what's mine. Invisible stakes deepen. I leaned back in the chair, my mind racing. Rachel's voice echoed in my memory. Raise him to be kind. Promise me he'll never feel alone. I had promised her, but looking at him now, I wondered, was there still hope, or was it too late? Michael's fist clenched, his jaw trembling. Isabella hissed in his ear, but her whispers carried across the room. Don't beg. Threaten him if you have to. He's old. He won't keep it forever. The words hit me like acid. My son's wife wasn't just arrogant. She was dangerous. She had her claws in him so deep he couldn't see past her shadow. And that's when I realized, this wasn't about the money. This was about saving my son before he lost himself completely. I rose slowly, the lawyer watching me carefully. Michael's eyes followed my every move, wide with desperation. Isabella crossed her arms, smug again, convinced I would fold. But I had already made my decision. And when I spoke, the choice I revealed silenced the room so completely that even the clock seemed to stop ticking. I stood tall, my fingers brushing against the worn wedding band I still carried in my pocket, the one Rachel had slipped on my finger decades ago. I thought of her, gentle, selfless, unwavering. She would not want me to throw anger back at anger. I turned to the lawyer. "I will not appoint Michael." The words cracked through the silence like thunder. Michael shot to his feet, his chair scraping across the hardwood floor. "What? You can't do this! I'm your son!" My heart twisted at the word son. Once it had been sacred. Now it felt like a dagger. "I won't appoint him," I repeated. My voice was steady, but my chest ached. "But I will make another choice." Isabella's smirk vanished. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Who then? Who could possibly deserve it more than your own blood?" I looked at her with calm. She couldn't understand. Someone who understands loyalty. Someone who still remembers what family means. The lawyer raised his brows. "Mr. Whitaker, who is your appointed trustee?" I drew a slow breath. Then I said it. "My granddaughter, Lily." Michael's face drained of color as though I'd struck him. His voice cracked like a child's. "Dad, no, not her. She's only 16. "Yes," I said firmly. 16, but with a heart purer than yours has been in years. The lawyer nodded. "It is legally valid. Mr. Whitaker may choose any successor he deems fit. Until she comes of age, the assets can remain in trust." Michael's hands trembled as he pointed at me. "You're doing this to humiliate me. You're punishing me because of something I said when I was angry." I locked eyes with him. "You didn't just say it. You meant it. You told me I wasn't your real father anymore. That choice has consequences." His breath came fast and shallow. Isabella's voice rose, shrill with fury. "This is ridiculous. That girl can't even manage a bank account. She'll waste it all." The lawyer's expression was stone. "According to the documents, she cannot touch the principal until the age of 25. Until then, Mr. Whitaker oversees it. Your objection is meaningless." Michael lunged toward me, his face red, veins bulging at his temples. "You've ruined my life. You've taken everything from me." I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I only said the truth. "No, son. You gave it away the moment you chose greed over love." The truth was, I hadn't simply chosen Lily to spite him. I had chosen her because of what happened 2 weeks before. She had come to visit me after school, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders, her eyes tired but kind. She sat at my kitchen table, eating the cookies I always kept for her, and whispered words that broke my heart. "Grandpa," she said softly, "Mom and Dad keep fighting about your money. They think you're too old to manage it. They said once you're gone, it'll all be theirs. But I don't want them to get it if it makes them fight like this. I'd rather have you than money." Her innocence, her honesty, it was Rachel's voice all over again. And I knew then who truly carried the family's legacy. Now, in that lawyer's office, Michael looked around wildly, his pride stripped bare. "You can't do this. I'll contest it in court." "I'll go ahead," the lawyer interrupted, his tone razor sharp. "But you will lose. The documents are airtight. Your grandfather anticipated disputes. Every page, every clause, every word was written to ensure his wishes stood unchallenged. You'll only waste money you don't have." Michael collapsed back into his chair, his face buried in his hands. Isabella sat rigid, her jaw clenched so tightly it looked like it might shatter. Her carefully crafted future had just disintegrated. And me, I stood in the wreckage of what once was my family, torn between victory and sorrow. As we left the lawyer's office, Michael grabbed my arm, his eyes wild, desperate. "Dad, please, don't do this. I'll change. I'll make it right. Just don't leave me with nothing." For the first time in years, I heard something real in his voice. Not arrogance, not entitlement, but fear. And I had to ask myself, was this my chance to save him, or was it just another trick? His grip was tight, his eyes frantic. I had seen Michael cry before when Rachel passed, when his dog ran away, when he didn't make the varsity team in high school. But this was different. These weren't tears of pain or grief. They were tears of fear. Fear of losing comfort, luxury, power. "Dad, please," he whispered hoarsely, his voice breaking. "You raised me. You can't just cut me out of your life like this. I'll change, I promise." I stared at him, my heart torn in two directions. Part of me saw only the selfish man who had spat cruel words at me, who had laughed with Isabella, as if I were nothing but a burden. But another part, the father in me, still saw that little boy clutching his blanket, asking me to check under the bed for monsters. Was this desperation a mask? Or was it the first crack in the armor Isabella had forced on him? Before I could answer, Isabella stormed over, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Michael, stop groveling. You don't need him. We'll find another way." She turned to me, her eyes blazing with contempt. "You think you're teaching him a lesson? No, you're just a bitter old man clinging to control. This money won't last forever, and when you're gone, he'll have it anyway." Her arrogance lit a fire in me. I stepped closer, my voice low, controlled, deadly calm. "Isabel, listen carefully. You will never see a cent of this fortune. Not now. Not when I'm gone. If Michael chooses to walk the path you've set for him, he'll lose everything. But if he ever finds his way back, then maybe he still has a chance." For the first time since I'd met her, her confident mask cracked. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. That night, I sat in my study, the house quiet except for the ticking of the old clock Rachel had bought at a yard sale. I stared at her photograph, her warm smile frozen in time. "What would you do, Rachel?" I whispered. "Would you forgive him, or would you let him fall?" I remembered her last words to me. "Promise me he'll never feel alone." But hadn't he already abandoned me? Hadn't he made me feel alone countless times? I gripped the pen in my hand, staring at the inheritance documents. I could amend them. I could leave a fraction to Michael, a lifeline, one last chance. Or I could lock it all away for Lily, ensuring Rachel's legacy would live on untouched by greed. My hand trembled. The decision weighed more than any fortune. The next day, Michael showed up at my house, not in his polished suit, not with Isabella. He wore jeans and a wrinkled shirt, his hair a mess, his eyes bloodshot. "Dad," he said, standing in the doorway like a boy again. I left her. I blinked, stunned. "You? What?" "I left Isabella. She doesn't care about me. She only wanted the money. I see that now. His voice cracked. "I don't want to lose you too." My heart twisted painfully. Could it be true, or was this another performance, another manipulation? I let him in, though doubt gnawed at me. We sat at the same table where I'd once helped him with his homework, where Rachel had served us her Sunday pot roast. The ghosts of those memories pressed in around us. "Dad," he whispered, his hands shaking. "Give me one more chance, please." I looked into his eyes, searching for truth, searching for the boy I had raised, searching for the son Rachel had loved so fiercely. And as the clock ticked on the wall, I realized I had to decide. Was this the beginning of his redemption, or was I about to make the biggest mistake of my life? I sat across from Michael at the kitchen table, the silence stretching between us like a canyon. He was fidgeting, chewing at his lip, tapping his fingers against the wood grain. He looked like a boy again, not the arrogant man Isabella had molded him into, but the frightened child who once begged me to teach him how to ride a bike. "Dad," he said, his voice raw, "I know I've been terrible. I know I hurt you. But please, just one chance to make it right." I studied him, every line of his face, every twitch of his hands. Was this real, or was it desperation now, that Isabella had abandoned him? Finally I spoke. "Michael, this isn't about money, it's about character. Do you understand that?" He nodded quickly, eagerly. "Yes, I get it now. I do." But did he? I pushed the inheritance documents across the table. His eyes widened. "I've made an amendment," I said. "You'll receive a small portion of the trust. Not enough to live like royalty, but enough to start fresh. The rest will remain for Lily. She's proven herself worthy of carrying this legacy." Tears filled his eyes. "Thank you, Dad. I won't let you down, I promise." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. A week later, I called a family dinner at my house. My sisters, cousins, even distant relatives gathered. The air was thick with curiosity. They all knew about the will. They all wanted to see what would happen next. Lily sat beside me, her small hand gripping mine under the table. Across from us sat Michael, pale and nervous. Isabella's chair was empty. Word had spread that she'd packed her bags and vanished, leaving him to face the storm alone. When everyone had eaten, I stood. "Family," I began, my voice steady. "You've all heard rumors about the inheritance. Tonight, I want to set the record straight." Gasps and whispers filled the room. All eyes locked on me. "I have chosen to divide the fortune. The majority will go into trust for Lily. She is young, but she has already shown more loyalty, honesty, and compassion than most adults ever manage." Lily's cheeks flushed, her eyes wide. "As for Michael," I continued, pausing to let the weight of the words settle, "he will receive a modest portion, enough to build a life, if he chooses wisely, but only if he proves himself worthy." Michael stood quickly, his chair scraping. "Dad, thank you. You won't regret this. I swear, I'll do whatever it takes." I raised a hand. "It's not just about promises, Michael. It's about actions. From this day forward, you will work, hard work, not handouts. No more leaning on others. No more living for appearances. Show me the man your mother believed you could be, and maybe you'll earn back more." The room was silent, the air heavy with tension. Some nodded in approval, others exchanged doubtful glances. And then, the test came sooner than I expected. After dinner, as guests began to leave, one of my cousins, Ellen, approached me, whispering urgently, "James, I saw Michael outside. He was on the phone with Isabella. He told her about the amendment. He said he'll get control of it all once you're gone." The words hit me like a hammer. My chest tightened. The promise, the tears, the begging. Was it all a lie? I walked to the window, and there he was, pacing in the dark, his voice low but sharp. "Yes, Bella, he gave me something. Don't worry. Once he's gone, I'll have the rest. Lily's just a kid. She won't stand a chance against me." My stomach dropped. The room spun. So that was it. My son hadn't changed at all. He was still the same boy who had disowned me for wealth. Only now he was pretending. I stepped away from the window, my fists clenched, my heart shattering all over again. The family was still inside, waiting. Lily looked up at me, her innocent eyes full of trust. I had given Michael one last chance, and he had betrayed me again. Now I had to decide, would I expose him in front of everyone, or quietly strip him of his inheritance once and for all? I returned to the dining room, my steps heavy but certain. The family was still gathered, sipping coffee, murmuring about the inheritance. Michael slipped back inside a moment later, wiping his face as though nothing had happened. He smiled at me, a smile I had once trusted but now knew was poisoned. "Dad," he said loud enough for everyone to hear, "thank you again. I promise you won't regret giving me this chance." I looked around the room at the people who had witnessed years of my sacrifices, cousins, siblings, nieces, nephews, and then my gaze settled on Lily, her small hand resting on the table, her eyes trusting me to protect her. I could not stay silent. "Actually," I said, my voice steady, "I already regret it." The room froze. Michael's smile faltered. What do you mean?" he stammered, a nervous laugh escaping. I pointed to the window. "I heard you, Michael. I heard every word you said to Isabella. You haven't changed. You never meant a word of your promises. You're just waiting for me to die so you can take the rest." Gasps filled the room. Someone dropped a fork, the clatter ringing through the silence. Michael's face drained of color, then flushed red. "That's not true. He's lying." But Ellen stepped forward, her voice trembling. "I heard it too. I was right there when you said it." "We all know what you are, Michael." Voices erupted around the table, accusations, disbelief, family members shaking their heads, some looking at Michael with pity, others with disgust. "You betrayed your own father," my cousin Richard muttered, "after everything he's done for you." "Shameful," whispered Aunt Rose, her voice sharp as a whip. Michael's chest heaved as he looked around, realizing no one was on his side. He turned to me, his eyes wide, desperate again. "Dad, please, you can't believe them over me. I'm your son." I steadied my breath. "Being a son isn't about blood, Michael. It's about loyalty, respect, love. And you threw those away the moment you said I wasn't your father anymore." He collapsed into his chair, his face buried in his hands. I turned to the lawyer, who had been sitting quietly at the end of the table, observing everything. "Strike Michael from the amendment. Effective immediately. Every cent goes into Lily's trust. Nothing for him." Michael's head snapped up. "No, you can't do that. Dad, please, don't." The lawyer adjusted his glasses. "It is within Mr. Whitaker's right to amend as he sees fit. After tonight's events, this amendment will be filed and finalized." Michael's lips trembled. His eyes darted toward family, searching for support, but found none. Isabella was gone. His allies were gone. And now, even the fortune he thought was guaranteed had slipped through his fingers. "You've destroyed me," he whispered hoarsely. I shook my head slowly. "No, Michael. You destroyed yourself." The family dinner ended in a storm of whispers. Some hugged me, some shook their heads in sorrow for what had become of Michael. Lily stayed by my side, silent but steady, her small hand never leaving mine. Michael walked out of the house alone that night. No wife, no inheritance, no respect. And for the first time in years, I felt a strange peace. Pain, yes, but peace, knowing I had honored Rachel's memory and protected the one person who still carried love in her heart. But even as I watched Michael disappear into the night, I couldn't shake the question. Would he vanish forever? Or would he return, seeking redemption or revenge? The days after that dinner felt heavy. My phone buzzed constantly. Relatives calling, some to commend me for standing my ground, others to ask if I might reconsider for the sake of family harmony. But there was no harmony left to protect. Lily began spending more time at my house. She helped me with chores, laughed while baking cookies in Rachel's old apron, and filled the halls with the sound of life again. She didn't talk much about her parents, and I didn't press her. I could see the hurt in her eyes. For all Michael's flaws, he was still her father. One evening, she looked at me across the dinner table and asked softly, "Grandpa, do you think Dad will ever be good again?" I paused, my fork hovering above my plate. How could I answer that? I wanted to protect her hope, but I also couldn't lie. "I think," I said carefully, "people only change when they lose everything and realize what really matters." Her small nod told me she understood. But deep down, I wondered, had Michael truly hit that bottom yet? The answer came a month later. Michael called me, not from his grand suburban home, not from some flashy business trip, but from a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. His voice was rough, defeated. "Dad, I have nothing left. Isabella drained the joint accounts. She sold the car. She's gone. And I don't even have a place to stay." I closed my eyes, pain tightening my chest. This was my son, broken, stripped of all the pride and arrogance he once carried. "Where are you now?" I asked quietly. He gave me the address. Against my better judgment, I drove out there. The room was dim, the carpet stained, the air smelling of mildew. And there sat Michael, unshaven, his clothes wrinkled, his eyes hollow. He looked nothing like the polished man who once sneered at me in designer suits. "Dad," he whispered, his voice cracking, "I'm sorry for everything." I stood in that shabby motel room, torn. Part of me wanted to pull him into a hug, to tell him it was all forgiven. Another part whispered that forgiveness without consequence meant nothing. "Michael," I said, my voice steady but soft, "sorry isn't enough. You broke something deeper than money. You broke trust. You called me less than a father. You betrayed not just me, but Lily too." At the mention of her name, he flinched. "I know," he said, choking back tears. "And I don't expect you to give me anything. Not money, not property. Just, maybe a chance to be in her life again." That was the first time I heard truth in his words. No demands, no manipulation, just a plea for love. Back home, I told Lily what had happened. She was quiet for a long time, staring at the floor. Then she whispered, "If he really means it, maybe we should let him try." Her innocence pierced me. Rachel's voice echoed in my mind. "Promise me he'll never feel alone." Maybe this was the chance, the last chance. So I agreed. But I set one condition. Michael could return, but only if he worked. He would take a job at one of the properties I managed, starting from the ground up. No inheritance, No shortcuts, just sweat, effort, and time. When I told him, his shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you, Dad. I'll prove myself, I swear." But as I watched him leave that night, heading off to his new job in worn-out shoes, I couldn't shake the question that clawed at my chest. Was this truly the beginning of his redemption, or just another performance waiting to collapse? The next morning, Michael showed up at the construction site. Not in polished shoes or a tailored suit, but in borrowed work boots, jeans, and a faded t-shirt. For the first time in years, I saw sweat on his brow, not from gym workouts or luxury spas, but from honest labor. The other workers didn't know he was my son. To them, he was just another rookie hauling lumber, hammering nails, and sweeping debris. Some laughed at his clumsy hands, blistered after the first hour. Others shook their heads when he dropped boards or bent nails. But he stayed. Day after day he showed up, his back sore, his pride stripped away. At dinner, Lily would ask, "Did Dad go to work today?" I'd nod. Yes. And he didn't quit. She would smile faintly, though doubt lingered in her young eyes. She had grown cautious, unsure whether to believe in him again. The rest of the family wasn't so kind. Cousins whispered that Michael was pretending, just biding his time until he found another way to scheme. Aunts scoffed, saying, "A man like that doesn't change overnight." Even I wasn't sure. Every time I saw him stagger home, dirt on his clothes, exhaustion in his eyes, I wondered, was this true transformation or just an act to win my forgiveness? Weeks passed. One afternoon while I was inspecting the property, I spotted Michael sitting alone during his break, his hands shaking as he stared at his phone. I walked closer quietly, just in time to hear the voice on the other end.
"Isabella, you're pathetic, Michael,"
she sneered, her voice loud enough for me to catch. "Working like some laborer when you could have had it all. If you crawl back, maybe I'll take you in again. Maybe." Michael's hands trembled, his jaw tight. "No," he said finally, his voice steady. "I'm done chasing you. I don't need you anymore." I stepped back into the shadows, my chest tightening. That was the first time I'd heard him resist her venom. The first time he chose dignity over greed. 2 months later, the company foreman approached me privately. "That new guy, Michael. He's green, but he works hard. Doesn't complain. Takes the worst shifts. The men are starting to respect him." I nodded slowly, my heart heavy but hopeful. Perhaps this was real. That evening, Michael came to my house, dirt still clinging to his arms. He looked at Lily, hesitating before speaking. "Sweetheart, I know I don't deserve it yet, but would you like to spend the weekend with me? Just us. No money, no fancy stuff, just time together." Lily looked at me for permission. My heart pounded. This was the real test. Not work, not money, but whether he could be a father again. I nodded. "Go on, Lily. See what he has to offer." That weekend would decide everything. If Michael truly wanted redemption, he would prove it not with words or wealth, but with love. And as I watched them leave together, Lily's small hand clutching his, I whispered to myself, "Rachel, this is his last chance." The Saturday morning was cool, sunlight stretching across the dew-soaked grass. I stood at the window as Michael's beat-up car rattled down the driveway with Lily in the passenger seat. No chauffeur, no luxury, just a father and daughter heading out into the world. The hours ticked by, and doubt gnawed at me. Would he leave her disappointed, cancel plans last minute like he used to? Or worse, use the time to feed her promises he couldn't keep? When they returned Sunday evening, Lily burst through the door first. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes shining. "Grandpa," she cried, nearly tripping over herself in excitement. "Dad took me fishing. We sat by the lake all day. He didn't even check his phone once." Behind her, Michael entered quietly, carrying the fishing rods. His face was sunburned, his clothes smelled of earth and water, and his eyes looked clearer than I had seen in years. Later that night, after Lily went to bed, Michael sat across from me at the kitchen table. He folded his hands, his posture humbled. "Dad," he said softly, "I know you're waiting for me to fail. I don't blame you. I've given you every reason not to trust me. But tonight, it reminded me of what I've been missing." Lily laughed at the dumbest jokes. She fell asleep with her head on my shoulder. And I thought, how did I ever let this slip away? His voice cracked. I don't want money. I don't want mansions. I just want to earn back the right to be her father and your son. I studied him carefully, searching for deception. For years, I had seen nothing but arrogance, excuses, and greed. But tonight, I saw something different, raw honesty. News of Michael's small transformation began to ripple through the family. At the next Sunday dinner, whispers were different this time. Did you hear? He's been working every day. Lily actually wants to spend time with him again. Maybe he's finally learning. But not everyone was convinced. My sister Rose crossed her arms, her voice sharp. Men like him don't change. He's just putting on a show until he gets what he wants. Michael lowered his eyes, taking the criticism without a word. And for the first time, instead of snapping back, instead of defending himself with lies, he stayed silent. That silence spoke louder than any argument. One evening, I received a call from the foreman at the construction site. James, you should know, your son gave up his paycheck this week. My brows furrowed. What? Why? He heard one of the younger guys couldn't pay his rent. Said he could manage without. But the kid had a family. Told me not to tell you. My chest tightened. That wasn't greed. That wasn't entitlement. That was sacrifice. When I confronted him, Michael shrugged. Dad, it was just money. That guy needed it more than me. And I thought maybe it's time I learned how it feels to give instead of take. For the first time in years, my eyes burned with tears. But redemption is never without temptation. And just when I began to believe my son was truly changing, a letter arrived in the mail. It was from Isabella, and inside she wrote, Michael, I can forgive everything. Come back to me, and we'll take what's rightfully ours together. The envelope was elegant, cream-colored, embossed with a golden seal. I knew before I opened it that it reeked of her. Isabella. The words inside dripped with poison, disguised as sweetness. Michael, I've had time to reflect. I know we fought, but I still love you. We could be unstoppable together. Forget your father's crumbs. Come back to me, and I'll give you the life you deserve. Together, we'll take what's rightfully ours. My hands trembled as I folded the letter back into its envelope. She hadn't given up, not on Michael, and not on the fortune. The real question was, had Michael given up on her? That evening, I found him sitting on the porch, staring into the dusk, his hair tousled from a day at work. Without a word, I handed him the envelope. His eyes widened when he saw her handwriting. His fingers lingered on the flap, trembling as he tore it open. As he read, I watched his face shift, shock, longing, anger, and then something I couldn't place. He pressed the letter flat against his knee, his jaw tight. She hasn't changed, I said quietly. Not one bit. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he folded the letter neatly, too neatly, like someone trying to keep control of their emotions. Finally, he spoke. A year ago, I would have run back to her without hesitation. I would have believed every word. But now, his voice broke. Now I know what love really looks like, and it's not her. He stood, walked to the old fire pit by the edge of the yard, and struck a match. Slowly, deliberately, he set the letter aflame. We both watched as Isabella's words curled and turned to ash. I'm done with her, he said, for good. But the test wasn't over. A week later, Isabella showed up in person. She marched into the construction site in her heels and designer coat, demanding to see him. The workers gathered, gawking, whispering. Michael, she called out, her voice sharp as a whip. Don't waste your life playing peasant. You belong with me. The men parted, and Michael stepped forward, sweat still glistening on his brow, his boots caked with dust. He looked nothing like the man she had once dressed up like a trophy. I don't belong with you, he said firmly. I belong with my family. She scoffed, her laughter brittle. Family? You mean that old man who cut you off? That little girl who barely knows you? You'll crawl back to me. You always do. He shook his head. Not anymore. The workers erupted in murmurs, some chuckling, others nodding in approval. Isabella's face flushed red, her composure cracking. With a final glare, she turned on her heel and stormed away. And for the first time, I believed him. That night, Michael came to me, his voice low but steady. Dad, I can't erase what I said to you. I can't erase the years I wasted. But if you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." I looked at him for a long moment. My son, the boy I had raised, the man I had lost, the broken soul now standing before me. For so long I had prayed for this moment. I reached out and placed my hand on his shoulder. "Then let's start today." His eyes filled with tears, and for the first time in decades, he pulled me into an embrace. But redemption is never without scars. Though Isabella was gone for now, I knew greed like hers never disappeared so easily. And as I held my son, finally feeling him return to me, a thought nagged at the back of my mind. Would she come back stronger? Or had Michael's rebirth truly severed her grip forever? Weeks turned into months, and slowly the wounds began to mend. Michael kept working at the construction site. Blisters hardened into calluses, his clumsy hands turning steady and skilled. The men who once mocked him now clapped him on the back, inviting him for beers after shifts. At Sunday dinners, he no longer avoided the hard questions. When relatives teased him about his past arrogance, he lowered his eyes and said simply, "I deserved it." And Lily, sweet Lily, began to smile at him more. At first cautiously, like a bird testing its wings, but then fully, laughing at his jokes, running into his arms after school. I watched as her heart, once so guarded, began to trust again. It wasn't perfect. Some nights he still wrestled with shame, with guilt. But he no longer hid it. He came to me, talked, listened. For the first time in decades, I felt not just like his father, but like his friend. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, Michael cleared his throat. "Dad," he said, his voice steady but filled with weight, "I don't want the inheritance. Not now. Not ever. Keep it with Lily. She deserves it. I just want a chance to stand on my own 2 feet." I turned to him, stunned. Those words were more valuable than any fortune. "You're sure?" I asked quietly. He nodded. "Yes. If I'm ever going to be the man Mom wanted me to be, I have to prove I can build something myself. Without shortcuts. Without greed." A long silence passed between us, broken only by the chirp of crickets. Finally, I whispered, "Your mother would be proud of you." His eyes glistened. He swallowed hard. "I hope so." The next family gathering was different. The air was lighter, laughter louder. For the first time, no one whispered about inheritance or betrayal. When Michael stood to make a toast, the room grew quiet. "I've been a fool," he admitted, his voice strong but humble. "I hurt the man who gave me everything. I hurt the daughter who loved me unconditionally. And I let greed blind me. But I'm here to say, I'm done chasing money. From now on, I'll chase only one thing, being the son and the father I should have been all along." Glasses lifted, some in forgiveness, some in cautious hope. But for me, it was enough. In the months that followed, Michael rebuilt himself. He rented a small house, modest but clean. He filled it not with luxury, but with warmth. Pictures of Lily on the walls, laughter echoing in the kitchen. Isabella was gone, a ghost of a past life. And though part of me feared she might one day return, I no longer saw her shadow over Michael's shoulders. He had stepped into the light on his own. And as for me, I finally felt peace. Rachel's promise had been kept. Our son was not alone. He had lost himself, yes, but he had been found again. So when people ask me what wealth truly means, I don't speak of numbers in a bank account or deeds on properties. I speak of love, of second chances, of a son who once disowned his father but found his way back home. Because in the end, the greatest inheritance isn't money, it's redemption. If you believe in second chances, share this story, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. Would you forgive if you were in my place?